extraordinary interception is recorded as 2 Russian attack helicopters traverse the sector at low altitude. The K-52 Alligators maneuver just meters above the terrain, attempting to avoid long-range detection. The first aircraft passes through the kill zone, narrowly avoiding a collision, but the second pilot is not so lucky. An FPV strike unit from the 59th Brigade establishes a lethal trajectory, closing the gap with surgical precision. The drone accelerates toward the massive target, delivering a direct impact that seals the fate of the multi-million-dollar asset. Mission confirmed. A solitary figure is detected traversing an open field with no cover in sight. The aerial unit establishes a visual lock and begins a series of low-altitude maneuvers around the moving target. For several seconds, the drone orbits the individual, demonstrating total control of the airspace as the intruder looks on in a state of growing realization. The pilot maintains a steady proximity, narrowing the gap with calculated precision. After observing the target's movements, the operator commits to the final phase of the engagement. The drone pitches forward, accelerating toward the target with lethal speed. A direct impact is achieved, neutralizing the threat instantly. Mission confirmed. Sector is clear. A solitary intruder is spotted traversing the open field, carrying a small bottle as he moves through the tall grass. With no cover available, he remains completely exposed to the aerial threat above. The FPV unit maneuvers for a precise strike, closing the gap in a matter of seconds. A high-velocity impact is recorded, neutralizing the target instantly. Mission confirmed. High-altitude reconnaissance monitors a lone target navigating a wooded path. Realizing the immediate threat from above, the intruder attempts to find sanctuary beneath the heavy armor of a destroyed BTR resting along the tree line. He believes the massive chassis will provide a shield against detection, but the aerial unit never loses visual contact. The operator tracks his every movement as he scrambles into the narrow gap beneath the rusted metal. As the FPV drone begins its final approach, the target realizes his position is compromised and tries to wedge himself even deeper into the wreckage in a final desperate act of survival. It is a futile effort against a pilot with surgical control and total visibility of the entry point. The unit maneuvers directly into the tight space beneath the hull, delivering a high-velocity strike that neutralizes the intruder within his chosen hiding spot. Mission confirmed. The sector is clear. An intruder is spotted moving cautiously along a network of trenches situated near a small tree line. Recognizing the immediate threat from above, he quickly drops to the ground and rolls onto his back in a final desperate attempt at defense. He raises his weapon, aiming directly at the approaching aerial unit, but the speed of the FPV pilot leaves him no window for a successful shot. Whether his aim failed or he simply couldn't fire in time, his resistance proves futile against the digital predator. The operator maintains a lethal trajectory, closing the final meters in a split second. A high-velocity strike is achieved, neutralizing the threat exactly where he fell. Mission confirmed. The sector is clear. An FPV unit patrols the remains of a pre-war checkpoint before landing on a rooftop to wait in a silent ambush. 2 motorcycles eventually approach the position. The drone activates instantly, allowing the first rider to pass before intercepting the second. The pilot maneuvers for a clear line of sight and delivers a high-speed strike directly to the back. Mission confirmed. High-altitude reconnaissance maintains a persistent vigil over a lone target as he traverses the open ground. Seeking to break the visual line of sight, the intruder enters a small tree line, hoping the sparse canopy will provide sanctuary from detection. However, the overhead unit has already established a permanent lock. Realizing he is being tracked, the target raises his weapon and begins firing frantically toward the sky in a desperate attempt to neutralize the aerial threat. The FPV pilot demonstrates superior control, skillfully maneuvering the unit to evade the incoming rounds while maintaining a steady orbit around the position. This exchange of fire only serves to confirm the target's exact location within the brush. After successfully navigating the defensive fire, the operator stabilizes the flight path for a final approach. The drone pitches forward, accelerating through the branches with lethal precision. A direct impact is achieved, neutralizing the threat instantly. Mission confirmed. The sector is clear. High-altitude reconnaissance tracks a lone target attempting to use the trunk of a solitary tree for cover. He moves with a false sense of security, believing the limited foliage will mask his presence from the overhead threat. The FPV unit initiates its final descent, spiraling down with lethal intent as the operator stabilizes the camera for the engagement. As the high-pitched whine of the motors fills the air, the intruder realizes his position is fully compromised. In a frantic bid for survival, he raises his rifle and begins firing several rounds into the sky. The pilot maintains a steady hand, skillfully adjusting the flight trajectory to avoid the desperate defensive fire. The rounds pass harmlessly as the drone continues its relentless, calculated approach toward the target. There is no time for a second attempt to defend the position. The distance vanishes in a split second as the unit commits to its terminal dive. A high-velocity strike is achieved directly on the target, neutralizing the threat instantly. This engagement serves as another reminder that in the era of total aerial transparency, a single tree is no sanctuary. Mission confirmed. The sector is clear. Fatigue on the front line often leads to a fatal lapse in situational awareness. We observe a solitary figure navigating the labyrinth of an earthen trench, moving with a heavy, aimless gait. After several minutes of wandering through the fortifications, the physical toll becomes too much to bear. He finds a secluded corner and settles down, eventually falling fast asleep. He believes the deep walls of the dugout provide a sanctuary from the world above, but the overhead unit has never lost visual contact. The FPV pilot stabilizes the trajectory, initiating a calculated descent into the narrow corridor. There is no reaction from the target as the distance vanishes in a split second. A high-velocity strike is achieved with surgical precision, neutralizing the threat in its most vulnerable state. Mission confirmed. Sector is clear. The landscape of modern warfare is increasingly defined not by the size of an armored formation, but by the precision with which it can be dismantled. For decades, heavy steel was the ultimate symbol of ground power, designed to crush defenses and project absolute force across the horizon. Today, that iron certainty has vanished. What we are witnessing is the systematic deconstruction of an armored invasion, where multi-million-dollar assets are reduced to scorched wreckage in a matter of seconds. Whether it is a main battle tank, an armored personnel carrier, or a vital supply transport, no platform is immune to the reach of the digital predator. The FPV drone has fundamentally rewritten the economics of the front line, placing a devastating amount of power into the hands of a single operator. In this montage, the disparity is clear. The brute force of the 20th century is being methodically neutralized by the agility and intelligence of the 21st. We see the armor burn, the ammunition cook off, and the logistical backbone of the aggressor snap under the weight of constant, precise engagement. This is a war of attrition where the defender holds the technical and psychological advantage. Every explosion recorded here represents more than just a destroyed vehicle. It is a data point proving that the era of armored invincibility is over. The sky belongs to those who adapt, while the earth becomes a graveyard for those who refuse to leave. The hunt continues, and the message to the intruder remains unchanged. Your steel will not save you. The destruction of armored steel is only one half of the equation. The true reality of this conflict is felt most acutely by the infantry on the ground. For those who cross the border with dreams of easy conquest, the landscape has transformed into a relentless, high-definition nightmare. There is no longer such a thing as a safe rear area, no sanctuary in the deepest trench, and no camouflage that can deceive the unblinking eyes watching from the clouds. We are witnessing a fundamental shift where the traditional infantryman is being systematically outmatched by the surgical precision of the aerial unit. This is the democratization of lethality. A small, hand-assembled device, guided by an operator in a distant bunker, now possesses the power to neutralize a squad in seconds. The psychological weight of this reality is impossible to overstate. To be an intruder in this sector is to live with the constant, high-pitched whine of a predator you often cannot see. It is the sound of an inevitable strike, a reminder that your every movement is a data point for a pilot pilot miles away. The traditional rules of ground combat have been burned away, replaced by a 24-hour cycle of constant surveillance and immediate engagement. As we watch these sequences of individual neutralization, we see the absolute failure of mass over precision. It doesn't matter how many soldiers are sent into the tree line or how many bunkers are dug into the frozen earth. The digital hunter finds every opening, maneuvers through every gap, and strikes with a finality that leaves no room for error. The land itself seems to participate in its own defense, aided by a generation of pilots who have turned technology into an unbreakable shield. The cost of this aggression is being tallied in real time, strike by strike, across every kilometer of the front. There is no glory here, only the cold, calculated efficiency of a modern defense. For the survivor, the message is clear. The ground you stand on is not yours, and the sky above is no longer empty. Every minute spent here is a minute closer to the next unit entering its terminal phase. The hunt is relentless, the precision is absolute, and the outcome for the aggressor is certain. The only choice that remains is to retreat or to become another frame in the long record of a failed invasion.